with that, let me say, I actually find it quite strange at this point that people are still wondering whether things can go as badly in the United States as they have in Japan. Because the fact is that things in the United States have already gone much, much worse than they ever did in Japan. It's actually quite startling to look back at what Japan's troubles are, and they're real, but Japan never had the kind of drastic slump in employment that has afflicted the United States. It never had a decline in real GDP comparable to that the United States is experiencing until the world as a whole went into crisis in 2008. So the U.S. has had a very bad start already, much worse than anything Japan has had. Will the United States quickly recover from this shock? Well, it's too late for that, right? We're now already, it's already 4 years since the Great Recession began. Are we feeling prosperous yet? And there's no sign, there's not even a hint in what's going on in the U.S. right now that a V-shaped recovery, the kind of thing that people kind of hoped would happen, is beginning, is in the offing, is even in the horizon. For the past 2.5 years, the U.S. has been basically in a holding pattern, growing, but not fast enough to make any significant dent in unemployment, which remains very high. It's a not collapsing, but a sour economy. And that's what a lost decade looks like. That's what Japan has been all this period, except that the United States is sourer and loster during this period than Japan ever was. Now, why would we think that maybe looking forward, all right, why would we think that looking forward things would get any better? Some people say that, U.S. Asset prices haven't fallen as much. Our stock market has never plunged as greatly as the Japanese. A couple answers there. One is that Japan took a long time to get as bad as it is right now. The Nikkei, if you go back to the 90s, the Nikkei was above 15,000 for almost all of that decade. So, give us time. But also you can say that America was a lot more vulnerable to falling asset prices because of our households never saved much in the first place. And ultimately, you have to judge these things on a PPE basis. That's proof of the pudding is in the eating. Everything you see says that the United States had a bigger shock to its economy than Japan did when its bubble burst. One other thing to say. For the first 15 years of its lost decade, sorry about that, but Japan's lost decade is now in its 19th year. Japan had the great advantage of being pretty much unique in its economic woes, so that it could, to some extent, pull itself out by exporting to a more prosperous rest of the world. And I've looked back, as far as I can tell, every financial crisis since World War II, the countries have recovered basically by having an export boom, by moving into a large trade surplus against the rest of the world that was doing okay. This time around, there is no, we're all in this. So the United States can't pull itself out by running a trade surplus unless we can find another planet to sell to.